My plan was that he had won a race in that car, and it was complete, and it was sitting exactly the way it was when he won the race.
Cup car?
No, it was a Busch car then.
Busch car, yeah.
Yeah, it's Xfinity now, Busch then. And so I drove over to look at the car, and while I'm there, it's like, okay, and this is it, and it was sitting exactly the way they'd finished the race, and obviously they got paid and they got the win, right? So I'm like, so if I'm going to buy this, all I asked for is if someone from this place can walk it through tech and represent it as the exact same car that won the race, and I should be able to at least get to race it one time as it won.
Okay.
We can't do that.
Why?
Because it wasn't legal. And then started telling me all the things I was going to need to be able to race it, and then I also got a call from Mike Helton, who's Mike Helton? Well, I knew afterwards. I figured out who he was. That he asked me to not come race.
Why?
Still too much controversy.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
This was right around the late 90s?
And said that he'd welcome me with open arms if I'd wait a while until all that went away.
And then that opportunity didn't never come.
Well, because when I got done listening to them about I'm going to need a body man, and I'm going to need all these carburetors. I'm going to need, and the list just kept growing and growing and growing. And I said, so I can't race the car that you just won with. And I said, why is that? He said, I'm just going to be straight up here, just because you're not Bill Elliott. I'm like, well, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
And I never looked back.
Knowing what we now know of you from all this conversation, you don't conform to everybody's rules very well, and so as soon as that starts stacking up,
as soon as I knew that the playing field wasn't the same for me, I was done.
Yeah.
Did you follow stock car racing at all?
I mean, I always kept my eye on it. I'd gone to. It was really bizarre. Even when I lived in California, I went to Riverside and watched it, and I've been to Bristol, been to Charlotte, and actually I drove an ARCA car at Michigan and Atlanta.
Really?
How'd that go?
Pretty good. I mean, that's pretty good, really. And then I drove the ARCA car on the dirt at the mile.
You did,
and it was just kind of playing a little bit with it. But it just wasn't my cup of tea.
I understand, yeah.
I liked, and actually, I went to Colburn, Virginia, and drove a late model stock. Yep. First time I'd ever done that, and we won the race. First time I'd ever gone, and we won the race.
Damn.
And there was all the good guys were there. Yeah. I ran an all-pro car at 411, and I got second to Freddie Query. But I'll never forget that because it was 110 degrees, and that was a Camaro that I think Arnold was who owned it, and had no ventilation and no air ducts, no nothing. They had been sitting in the barn, I guess. I don't know, but they got it out because they wanted to promote. I was going to race it to get people to come. They never thought I was going to run good, but I was asphyxiated with exhaust and the heat. And when the race was over, I was right up on Query trying to win the race.
He was on the show this year. He's a wheelman.
Yeah, and that was pretty big, and his first time in an all-pro car. And when the race was over, I was so gassed and exhausted from heat and gases that I'd have two people help me out of the car, and I couldn't stand up after when I got out of it. And I mean, I was at my peak in physically. So I'd hate to think I have to endure that today.
Yeah. I'm sure we could have made the car more comfortable.
That's what I told them. I said, if you ever want me to do this again, let's get some air.
Did you follow anybody as a fan?
Oh, just probably your dad would have been the only one, and I did get to meet him one time at Charlotte.
Really?
Just to shake hands and no conversation. I just wanted someone to introduce me.
Yeah, he ran dirt a lot in the 70s at Metrolina and Concord.
Well, I think that he was the one that at Riverside. This is like the first NASCAR race went straight through the S's. Yeah. And I'm like, that's me. I like that. I think that's when I became. I was a fan. That was my first NASCAR race. I'm like, that's the kind of I do. I like that.
That's awesome. You did run a truck at Eldora. You ran without the sway bar. I was so pissed off at you.
You know what though? I went and tested at Smoky Mountain, and the other two cars of his, I was a half a second faster than they were.
With the sway bar off.
And I think that they decided I shouldn't get to win the race because the car didn't handle nothing like it did when I went back to Eldora.
Struggled.
It was a waste of my time. I said I wish I'd have known the car wasn't going to be nothing like it was at Smoky Mountain. I wouldn't have shown up.
So, like, are you saying that? What are you saying exactly? You thought that there was
I'm saying that they had adjustable shocks and all, and conspiracy. You can't prove that, so I say it. But so they had to go back and make shocks off of all the adjustments that were made, and I guess they just missed it. I don't know, but the other guys ran good, and I was a half second faster practice than his other guys, but still. And you know that Kyle drove my car and won the last Prelude they ever had.
He did.
And when he called me and talked to me about that, he said on his bucket list was to beat Tony Stewart at his own racetrack, and that's why he called me. And I said, I think we can do it. And I must say, I mean, I was impressed. Anybody thinks he's not a race car driver is mistaken. He can drive anything.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking, because I remember you were in some sort of legal lawsuit against Tony Stewart, and I thought it was because they had wronged you somehow with what you raced at Eldora, right?
Yeah, I never did do a lawsuit. I knew that wasn't going to be good for my career or my visits back to Eldora. But one thing it did do, I won the Dream. Again, I said, so this is $100,000, and I think it was 12 that time. I've been thrown out for 3 pounds there, and I knew I wasn't light. Afterwards, after we said we were not going to get paid, we threw us out for it. I checked my fuel level, and I had done the car myself. I knew that I wasn't light, and so I went straight home. Fire suit, just didn't touch nothing, put it on my scales, and I was 20 over, which, let's say maybe I should have added more, but I know how much I'm going to burn. I knew I had it calculated. I won the race, no matter what. But so I called the Ohio Weights and Measures, and it was kind of funny because the woman that was head of it, I told her who I was. Well, she was a big fan when she was younger. Mm-hmm. So I told her the whole situation, and she said, well, I'll tell you what I can do. She said, I can get the truck and all the weights and go down to Eldora. They don't have to let me, but they may not realize they don't have to let me on the property to do it, and I'll just ask them if I can check them, and whatever. And she did. And when she checked them, she called me, and the scales they had then were worthy of doing the job they were using them for. And she said when she took the weight and moved it around, there was 60 pounds fluctuation. So, I might have run a lot more left rear than anybody else. And I asked her, I said, just document the movements. And it turned out that when she moved the weight there, it got lighter over here, 60 over here. And she told them, she said, these, and they weren't certified because no one would certify them. They weren't of a quality scale. So I just bit that bullet. They ended up, at least a long time ago, they just dug 4 holes and had 4 computer scales in the dirt, and that was a joke too. But they had a scale, but it wasn't quality, and it wasn't even certifiable. So what came of that is Tony did put a good scale in, and it has a readout, and it shows a light now. And I mean, it's so if anything come of it, at least now it won't happen to anybody else. But I had to still take. I had to take the damn hit.
Well, but hit you threatened a big. You threatened.
I threatened to sue. I mean, actually, because I knew I was right, and then when she had the documentation, I probably would have won. But I would have lost, in the big picture.
Right. Sure.
I didn't. I'm not about suing. Nobody likes people that are sue happy, and you don't want to be remembered for that.
Well, you and Tony clearly fix things because you also raced in a series.
Yeah, yeah.